Hi, everyone. Today we're here to discuss The Nine Dash Line. This is the book, written by Dr. Pooja Bhatt. And, well, it's called Nine Dash Line, Deciphering the South China Sea Conundrum. But I think we start by saying that this is no longer the Nine Dash Line, is it? So we've progressed.
Yeah, I should change the name.
Yes.
For the next population.
Maybe the sequel.
The sequel.
So why don't you start by saying...
Sequel next will be never dash line.
I hope not.
So what made you decide to write about the South China Sea in particular?
So the book, origin of the book was in sometime in 2016, June, July. And during that time, I was working with Center for Air Studies, which is a think tank, AFOS think tank in New Delhi. And there was this project going on, understanding what Chinese up to in their maritime domain and everything. And just in the same year, in June 2016, we had a permanent code of arbitration tribunal that came out with the verdict on 9-line. So that was one thing which triggered a inquisitiveness about the entire thing. And because as being in India, we were not talking too much about 9-9, why South China Sea is important. So that was way ahead of our radar. Okay? But with Center for Air Studies, we thought, why not look ahead? Maybe tomorrow this may be no deal for us. But what if it turns out to be issue of concern? And thankfully, which is now we are talking about it. So good by becoming relevant for that. So when we started, it was just an overview to understand what China is doing in this maritime domain. Why 9-line was big an issue. What are the ideas that China, because it's not a boundary line, it's not a clear boundary line.
If I could just inject, for those who don't know, could you go in a bit detail what exactly is the 9-line?
Yes, so I'll come to that. Yeah. So a 9-line is their series of currently now 10, but they started as 11 dashes in sometime in 1947. That's what China claims. In 1947, when there was Comintang government there in China, within China, they released this map based on Chinese narrative. That's not me. And they said they produced a map, which is their annual practice, and they showed these dashes around the South China Sea, which covered 80% of South China Sea. They never gave an explanation for what these dashes are, what these dashes signify. Are these territorial or maritime kind of boundaries? What are the kind of jurisdiction that China has? There was no explanation, only a map. At the same time, there were no questions asked to China about it. 1947. But when it was in 1990s when China started making a lot of provocative, aggressive moves against Filipino fishermen, Vietnamese fishermen, that's when Philippines went to the court in 2009, and then 2013 the case started and all everything. So that was in 2009, China came up with this map. First time the world community at the UN level is seeing this map where China has drawn these 9 dashes. So the 2 dashes from the Vietnam side, 1953 was removed because they had China and Vietnam had this kind of resolution between themselves. And the 2 dashes towards the western part of the area was cleared. And then we had 9 dashes. So since then, 2009, China kept on saying this is our area, the waters are ours. Never said what this kind of delimitation means to them, what kind of rights and claims it means to them. They never made any clear statement about it. Once they lost the PCA verdict in 2016, we did not hear anything about 9-line. No statements from their leadership. No statements at the UN level, nothing was made. Till 2023, August, when they came up with another map where they added one more dash next to Taiwan because of the Taiwan crisis. So there is no continuity. Domestically, they might be using this map to show the domestic people that this entire region belongs to us. We were once this huge kingdom, and we want to reclaim it. But internationally, they never came out except these 2 times, 2009 and 2023. So this is the story of the line, and I can discuss more as we go on.
Yeah, sure. So I'll get into the first question. And as you mentioned about glory and patriotism, so in the book you mentioned that China wanted to reclaim its past glory. And recently there have been talks, we just spoke about a bit earlier, about how Xi Jinping might be losing his influence slightly in China. So how does China's historical perspective, particularly the idea of the Middle Kingdom, influence its claims in the South China Sea?
It is becoming more and more clear that authoritarian regimes need a reason to keep themselves relevant, right? And you need a story, a narrative for that. And Middle Kingdom is that providing that narrative for China, because as per Chinese description, Middle Kingdom was a time they say that China was so powerful in particular centuries, and I say why it is not that it was middle of the world, center of the world, and the world starts from them, and they are the hub, and everything is spoke, right? So they want to now use the same narrative to again regain that kind of glory. So we were once a big kingdom. We faced a lot of British, Portuguese, and other traders, and they defeated us. Japanese defeated us, and we had to face the century of humiliation because we lost a lot of wars. They took away our money, they took away our women, they were whatever. So we face a lot of humiliation. Now we want to regain that glory. So they went to history to regain that glory, and it's becoming a narrative for them. And Xi Jinping has learned it very well that when you infuse people with that kind of we were once great and we want to be those people again, that works a lot on building up nationalism within people. And that's how you will motivate people in a country where the unemployment is high, where there is, economy is dwindling, the demography is aging. There is one child policy where otherwise parents should not be sending the people to join military.
Yeah.
One child, why would you want to give one precious child whom you spend so much of money and time raising just to be on border and die one day? Right? How do you influence that kind of people to join military? So nationalism helps.
Yeah.
Nationalism based on historical idea of the country. That's why Middle Kingdom and the entire story and narrative.
Is there any similarity between what's happening in China and Putin with Russia, that this is what we used to be, this is a
so
thing?
You see the authoritarian leaders in that kind of mindset
Yeah.
work alike. They have learned their templates from one another, and it's being replicated in other parts of the world also.
Yeah.
If you see Syria, if you see Turkey,
Yes.
many other countries, the same models are being replicated to show that once we were such a huge kingdom or whatever, and now we want to get back to that, so we need that kind of nationalism to bind people so that they fight for the cause. So that is the thing.
That's a good point. To what extent do you think the historical territorial claims made by states before we had the United Nations convention laws,
Yes.
how did claims made before the UNCLOS was implemented affect the current dispute now? For example, like you said, China's made all these historical claims.
There's one interesting part that we have to understand about UNCLOS. UNCLOS started its negotiation. It was made under 3 parts. So it started their negotiation sometime in 1958, and it was a very first world kind of organization idea that we will settle our maritime claims and disputes in a certain way and all that. That time, China, India, and a lot more other third world countries were also party to it, but we never signed to those conventions. But we were always aware what's going on. By the time we came into UNCLOS 3, a lot of countries learned that UNCLOS 3 will lead to delimitations of oceans. That countries will now have certain area which we call territorial waters, certain area which we call EEZ, certain beyond that will be high seas. So they learned it that this is going to happen. And before that, they on the one hand made their domestic laws on maritime issues, so that tomorrow you have your domestic laws settled first before you talk about international laws. Second, they also bolstered their whatever claims they could have done. So tomorrow you can show presidency. We had it before even the international law came into picture. While they were being continuously engaged in the negotiation, they knew the negotiations were going on. So before we sign those negotiations, let's put our house in order. So India's also guilty of that. No, not guilty, means I would say they just followed the same suit what the world was doing. We also had our domestic maritime laws, 1977, maritime zones of India, NZI Act. So the UNCLOS actually made it a reason for a lot of countries to have that thing. On the other hand, there were also certain countries like Vietnam, Philippines, 1960s, 70s, which was so involved in wars that time. And we were having this discussion earlier also that they're so chaotic inside domestically that they did not think about their foreign policy, their approach outside their domestic borders. So they have never thought of, okay, if I would not claim Spratly Islands, I would not claim Paracel Islands, I might use it sometime. They were just too busy, too chaotic that time to do it. And now they're facing their, whatever results for that. So there are both sides of stories. Some countries did, build up their claims, including China. Other countries like Vietnam and Philippines and a lot more other countries did not do it, and they're now facing the music.
Yeah, I was actually going to get to that. So, how do we pretty much got into how do neighboring countries like Vietnam and Philippines interpret their historical presence in the South China Sea, and how does it align with current claims?
So other thing is there was differentiation in how their historical claims were.
Yeah.
The book also mentions this part that on the one hand, Vietnamese had British control over it during that 1960s and all that, and even US was there after that. So when the US handed over their the country back to Vietnam, they did not make a very clear statement about what happened into these, islands and other small landforms which are there in the Maritime domain.
Yeah.
So there was never a very clear cut, like how we have our national borders in India, that it was handed over to us but without making a clear distinction. Similarly, those regions, those islands were handed over to Vietnam without making clear distinction of whose control it is under. Right?
Yeah.
So that. On the other hand, what Philippines faced was there was a rich Filipino businessman called Thomas Pluma. In 1960s, 70s, he went around to all these Spratly group of islands because there was very expensive bird meat which can be used in fertilizer. He used to go and use it for commercial purpose. So he used to go and hunt that and used to. So he had that kind of money to control these islands. Later, those personal the personal items were taken over the government. So the claim was different. And because Philippines was so late in taking those claims, they never made international claims over it. So these are different areas, how different countries have shown their or not shown their claims, and that is now playing against their own interest. Now they're not able to produce legitimate claims in 1960s and 70s, which China is able to show that 1947 map and saying, this was mine. These countries do not have, even though they had certain claims, they are not able to
fall back on anything.
Yes, show something on paper that this was ours. And in international relations, everything is on paper or on records. Verbally, there doesn't work much beyond a point. So where they're losing their time in China.
So what exactly can they do to counter this at this point, now that they don't have the previous records that China has established already? What can countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, what can they do to counter China at this point?
What they are currently doing exactly what they should be doing. So what is happening now, and because one of the suggestions given by a lot of scholars, including myself, that what Vietnam, Malaysia, and all these Indonesian countries should do is every time there is a provocative move by China in any of the way, whether it's sending a research vessel or sending their maritime militia or sending their PNA Navy, any kind of aggression they are doing in waters of other countries.
Yeah.
Okay? These countries should not only first send legal demarches in the name of motorbags, making it an international issue, not just making it a bilateral issue, but also start being more aggressive themselves. Initially, in 2000s and everything, they did not have that kind of wherewithal of countering China in terms of they did not have those kind of vessels. Luckily for them, US came into their help, and now both Vietnam and Philippines have bigger vessels, better trained military. So now you will see a lot of news coming out that Philippines is sending a Sierra Madre.
Recently only, yes.
That is happening every week now. They're making it a point that Sierra Madre is nothing, but there's a ship, broken ship on a barely afloat reef.
Yeah.
That's the end. That's dilapidated, is breaking down to the bones. And what they're doing is they've placed 2 or 3 Filipino military people on the board, Navy people, and Coast Guard people. And what they do is just send them supplies every week. Earlier, they used to be very scared of doing it, and like what China will do. Well, now they're making it a point that they send every week. So, and every day they know that China will stop them. And now they see the kind of,
aggression
that goes on there. There is a Filipino Coast Guard, there's Chinese Coast Guard, and then the fisherman goes in between. That's like a very movie kind of thing. So I think they're making more of an issue. So that international interaction comes in. Till now, there's no international attention to the issue of South China Sea and what the people are facing. And they made it a deliberate attempt of bringing all the smaller issues also at the bigger media level. Media goes every time with these, fishermen and everything. They will back them up. And whatever Chinese are doing, they record it and put it on social media. So everyone is seeing what China is doing. Now China cannot escape that. Exactly that is what was expected from them. They're doing it. This not only brings a lot of international attention, but will also eventually build a case for these countries against China. So tomorrow, like 10 years down the line, they want to go, or 2 years down the line, they want to go to International Court of Justice or PCA to say that China is a court.
Yeah.
See, this is only a cinema mark, right? They are putting down the things which are showing the mark.
Exactly.
Thing, right?
Exactly.
It's raising questions.
Exactly. So even China was doing it very, they're trying to show it very innocuously that 9-9 is a very normalized thing and people are taking it because of it, no big deal there. But now Vietnam, Philippines, now these countries making a point that you cannot put this map anywhere. Don't normalize it in movies, don't normalize it in children's books, don't normalize it in maps. So every time they're coming up strongly with those and making it an issue out of it. Basically, that's what politics is about, making an issue out of nothing. So, but basically, it was not nothing, but yeah.
So this is, like you said, using the media, but international news doesn't really get to reach inside China. So what is the story inside China when all these things are happening? So they like to use disinformation. For example, with Japan right now, the whole Fukushima controversy. Within China, the story is the Japanese are trying to poison us. You can't eat seafood from them. But so what's the story in China when all this is happening? The rest of the world knows one story.
Mm-hmm.
In China, what are they being told?
So in China, from the last 1980s, that's what we understand is the 9-9 and the entire map of China is something in their children's book. Their children grow up reading that the entire region is out. So this is so inculcated. The adults, our counterpart of 1980s, who are now adults, who are into military services, who are into political system now, for them it's normal. If you go ahead and talk to them that no, it's not yours. There is no.
Sentimental value.
It's also sentimental value for them. And this is the way they have controlled the narrative and even the outside information that goes to them, which is very filtered.
Yeah.
But whatever goes to them, they just do not take it on face value. They're like, you are trying to take away what's ours. It's in turn legitimizing Xi Jinping and the
propaganda.
So that's how it's working.
We touched on this a bit right now. In what ways are these neighboring countries hedging or balancing their relationships with both China and the United States in the context of this whole South China Sea dispute?
I think they have gone wiser over the years. They have realized also that South China's dispute is happening at the larger geopolitical scale where we're seeing US-China rivalry happening at various levels. Strategic rivalry, economic rivalry, military rivalry, in every way we are seeing. So the countries are very clear that despite having this issue on our heads in South China Sea, we cannot rely either on China or on US for our security. And Philippines tried doing it. After they won the PCA war in 2016, they went to the then President Rodrigo Duterte went to Philippines. Like, had it been some other president who would be like, I won the case, your historical claims stand nowhere, China back off. In a surprising visit, the next month, July, so June, the verdict came out, Junaki went to Chinese president to meet him. Let's just talk about it. So they tried that, and then they again realized that's not working. Philippines still getting the aggressive moves that from China that it is getting. So now the countries have turned wiser and they cannot rely on either of the countries for their protection. What they are trying to do now is, first of all, diversify, so cut off their entire reliance on either the two countries, because they are the major trading partners of these two countries. But they are what they're trying to just not relying on these two countries, they're diversifying for the first thing. Now they have way more partners than these two countries. So they're trading with more partners. So their reliability on one country or another goes down. And that also gives you more autonomy to make your foreign policy choices. Second, what they're trying to do is to build up their militaries. That has been done in 2 ways. First of all, they are trying to buy a lot of military equipment at good prices. And surprisingly, neither China and nor US figure that the top military suppliers to these countries. It's Russia, it's France, there's other countries, UAE, India. These are the countries which are supplying military weapons to these countries. So they're not even militarily relying on US or China for the military supply, because it can be any day cut off and can be very, very, because the US China supplies them the military supplies, they know what they're supplying, right?
Yeah.
So and also what these countries are trying to do is to build up their military capabilities also by joint training with other countries.
Yeah.
So you will see in the last few years, these countries have started training with so many other countries within ASEAN,
Yes.
with India, with other countries, with France they had recently, with Australia they had recently. So now they're diversifying in these ways. So this is a new way of hedging their, possibilities basically, so that they're not relying on one partner, but at the same time developing themselves to stand up to China on South China Sea.
Getting into the economic environment impact of this whole dispute, how do you think China's territorial claims impact the economic interests of the neighboring countries, particularly in terms of joint development projects and energy exploration?
The territorial things.
How do China's territorial claims impact economic interests of neighboring countries, particularly in terms of joint development projects and energy exploration in this?
So what has happened is South China Sea has a lot of oil and gas reserves. But the problem is the location where they are present. It's so deep that's not easily explorable by any country. We do not have the current technologies to explore those areas. They are so deeply present. So at the same time, countries like Philippines, Vietnam, which have those areas in their EEZs, have the capability. They don't have the capabilities to mine those oil and gas. They in turn have to rely on other countries.
Yeah.
So either those technologies are with China or with US. So you must be seeing a lot of Chinese and American countries or companies like ExxonMobil and all investing in those areas. India tried to find it out. Unluckily for us, it did not work out for us in Vietnam. We did not find it out. But what is happening is now China is now taking advantage of that fact and trying to build cooperation with these countries. Like Philippines has the biggest area, Malabaya and the Lead Bank. These are two areas where maximum possibility of oil and gas is available. So now what China is saying, let's just do partnership. This is their 12 factor strategy, which says that let's get away with not dispute on the disputed items. Let's build up cooperation in it. To paraphrase it. So now what China says to Philippines that let's just not call it a Colombiya and Lead Bank as a disputed area. Let's just cooperate in that. You keep 30%, I'll keep 70%. And Philippines is like, why? Like my constitution says that anything that is excavated within my EEZs would be 70% mine. My constitution says that. I have to revise the constitution. So now that is a kind of dispute. So what China, and if you see recently, a lot of Chinese vessels have been seen around Vietnam also, doing those researches for oil and gas. So they're sending those research vessels to those 9-. So 9-time is also very strategically placed. I don't know how they realize that requires more understanding. But where the dashes lie, those are the areas with maximum concentration of the oil and gas. So that makes a lot of economic sense for them to not leave it. So whatever research vessels you see, if you juxtapose with those location dashes, they will right around those dashes.
So continuing on this, in the book you mention how the creation of artificial islands, overfishing and so on, have had an adverse impact on the marine ecosystem of the region. What are the environmental consequences of this militarization and artificial island creation in the South China Sea? And how do these activities affect the ecosystem of that region?
So the basic concept of building artificial island is damaging to the environment. Concept. What the concept is, you have a reef or you build up the land or the island base to a level where it is above water. So you fill it with a lot of sand artificially. So you crush whatever the below marine ecology is there, and then you build up whatever your system is there, infrastructure. The other point to it is, because it's sand, it keeps eroding away. So you have to keep filling it every few months. So this is a continuous cycle. You have to keep maintaining artificial island, keep depleting the marine ecology. That is one aspect. So whatever islands that China has, there 7 of them, and they are huge, huge. If you see before and after pictures which are there, if you go on Google also, you'll see before and after pictures of those islands. Those tiny little green reef areas, they've built up massively into airport areas where you have landing stations and everything. Now that has, of course, killed the reef system and a lot of marine ecology that lives on that reef system. You continuously send your vessels there, so there's oil leakage. You contaminate the water there. Other thing is they also do a deep water dredging. Deep water dredgers are basically huge vessels. So when you do fishing, traditional fishing is just put your net, take out those. Dredging puts a huge metal net on the bottom and then they just drag away for kilometers. So you'll have millions of fish, big and small, irrespective size, coming with that. So first of all, you kill the small fish, which could have been, your few food for the future.
Yes.
You also kill the marine bottom animals and trees, flora and fauna on the bottom with the dredging. So essentially, currently, if you see, South China Sea region has no fish at all. And that is the primary reason why Taiwanese, Vietnamese, Filipinos, Chinese, they are fishermen are now venturing outside, including Indian Ocean and Atlantic and New Zealand and everywhere, where you have more fish and marine environment, marine food available. So they are basically doing the same thing. They've killed their own ecosystem, and now they're on to Indian Ocean and beyond to kill that ecosystem.
But has China not projected this image to the world that they are trying very hard to clean up pollution within their country, within thing? How much of that is true? Because I've heard that a lot of solar power is now being generated in China. That I'm not exactly sure about the figures, but that a lot of solar power is now used in China. So
always, with China, any political system, how I would read it, look at what they say and then see what they're doing and then compare where they are, basically. So China, as you rightly mentioned, and the book also mentioned, that they made this huge human cry in 2017 when they were about to sign the Paris Agreement. When President Trump pulled it out from the Paris Agreement, and President Xi Jinping made a huge speech about Paris Agreement that we will sign it and how we are representing the global South and their energy and climate needs and everything. So they wanted, normatively, they want to show themselves that how they are good for the global South, how their concerns are, they are raising the concerns of global South, climate change being one of them. But if you go down breaking on their actions in South China Sea, as we mentioned, they are doing exactly the opposite. So, to say that, they're trying to, and also recent, in 2017, with ASEAN, China had signed a specific agreement that they will do joint marine cooperation on, South China Sea. It's ASEAN, China ASEAN Marine Agreement, something. And so they did not do it. And that South China Sea is now deprived of fish. They do not find the oil. recently, I think last month only, Philippines has actually sued China on the basis of same agreement that you once said that you will protect the environment. And another thing I have to bring here is every year in the breeding fish season, the June, July, China puts unilateral moratorium in entire South China Sea that you cannot fish here. And they push out all the Filipinos and any other fishermen out of it, which is again wrong. If the entire region is, between the countries, they should be allowed, or you should be at least asking them. Like they are fishermen community, they would understand this is breeding time for the fish, and they will not fish it. But making a unilateral action and that to prohibitively with fishermen,
Destroying fishes.
they have their maritime militia behind them, and you're hitting these fishermen with water guns and everything. You're making a unilateral attempt of showing that I'm trying to protect the fishing of this area, but you're not taking others in consent. So that is another thing. Like they are trying to project one thing about everything, norms and values and everything, but when it comes to actions, they're just the opposite of it.
So a little bit more, I want to get into the Belt and Road Initiative. And I know that you've written a paper about this recently also, but that was more to do with Ukraine and the impact of the war. But recently we've seen submarine bases being created, and most recently in Bangladesh we've seen submarine bases being created, but Bangladesh itself doesn't really have any submarines. So this is mostly done for the purpose of China being able to infiltrate. And what relation do you think this has with the Bay of Bengal?
So, BRI and dual use infrastructure are related at the same time. BRI is an idea where China again wanted to be a hub and then produce products, and through the spokes, through the land transport and the maritime transport, it will transport, sell out these products to Europe, to Africa, to the rest of the world. That was the idea. And the heart of that BRI project is the city called Xi'an, which is the industrial town, and it's massive, like how you have Indian SSDs in Noida and other places. It would be like multiplied by 100 times in Xi'an there. So they wanted to produce everything and just send it out. So that was the idea. So they wanted to send it out by land, send it by maritime route. So that is why they wanted to connect to these countries through land and ports. What are you talking about? Ports. So one thing is now BRI is again a very complicated multi-dimensional topic. When we talk about the port part of it, you are right. The ports were actually built in the name of BRI, that we will use these ports for trade and everything. But at the same time, certain ports are dual-use infrastructure also, as you rightly mentioned. They're not just for trade purposes, because that have different dimensions. But they are needed military ports. Countries like Bangladesh, Myanmar, then you have recently one Cambodia, Great Place. So these are countries where China is building those military style bases and with the submarine bases. These are countries which don't even have submarines with their navy. Some of them don't even have navies at all. They don't even have a navy, I guess. So they're trying to use this for the future use, basically. When your ships come, ships will require place to dock themselves, replenish their supplies. They need port supports for that. So when they come from all the way from South China Sea, it takes 10-12 days, they will need to replenish. So they're trying to build up ports where not only they can replenish themselves in the future, but if they need some kind of military assistance in the future, those ports can be used at the same time. So that is the entire idea.
And how does this affect India though?
Because it will affect India. We are having military ports all over our, I think India is closely observing this. And every country where China is putting their own dual-use port, we also are trying to build up our own counterport. So, in a way, we are also trying to maintain a presence in those countries, military kind of presence, so that these countries do not take one-sided approach. So now if you say Sri Lanka, even though they allow those Chinese vessels to dock, they clearly said that we will not take any action against India, anything that will harm India's interests. Similarly, Bangladesh said so. Sheikh Hasina's government said so. So India is trying to make up. I'm not sure how much they are winning that neighborhood game, but they're trying to build up this thing that our neighbors cannot use their countries against India's interests. I think that is being done.
Also, so we've seen recently with the election in Maldives, they're pro-China now. The government is very pro-China government, and they're India out, as they've stated for a while. Similarly, in Bangladesh, there's the upcoming election in 2024. What ramifications could this have for the region, India and so on, and the rest of the world, if there were to be a change in government, if Sheikh Hasina were to be removed from power?
What I've understood from Chinese perspective, they have understood the political game very well. They understand that they have, in each of the countries across the world, the opposition party should always be in favor with China. They have learned this game very well, mastered it pretty well.
Yeah.
So that's why when we're discussing about why China has so many diplomats,
Yeah.
that's what they
This is
do.
what they're doing.
They influence the opposition party. And the moment you just switch the opposition party and they see the current ruling party is not their favor, they'll start helping out the opposite party. So this is the way they have mastered it all. India sadly has not kept up the game, and we should have known. At least analysts knew it. I'm sure policymakers also knew it very well. The politicians knew it very well. That if this year we had all pro-India governments circling us, we should have kept a note that now the election cycle is starting and this will start switching. And we need to be very prepared. I think we will not prepare enough. So we might be facing a tough time in the current. And also we are having our election year next year, so it's going to be a big churn now.
Yeah. Getting out of South China Sea, could China project their power into the South Pacific Sea now?
They have already started doing it. So the Solomon Islands and other them, Manatu and other places are now. So what again China is very masterfully done is understood the areas where US and the Western world did not pay attention over the years. Economically, strategically, politically, and they have captured all those areas. South Pacific was a holiday ground for Americans. They would go for holidays. Fiji Islands.
Yeah.
They knew the strategic importance, but they never paid that attention. They never paid attention to their economic development. They never paid attention to their infrastructure development, their demands and everything. They were certain amount given, but not very serious commitment to it. Well, this is what China actually captured over the years. Now, Solomon government is entirely under Chinese, influence now. So they have, and the moment Chinese reach there, I think Australians and Americans realize, oh, in this start spot,
Yeah.
we have to go back to it. Now, these countries are actually seeing too much attention, like South Asia, where we are seeing too much attention, both from China and from US, and everyone wants to engage with us now. South Pacific has become another region where they're getting too much attention from everywhere. So everyone is ready to invest.
Very suddenly.
Yeah, they have so much of money, and then now they are saying, okay, we will take people at our own interest. These are basic interests. If we need this, if you're giving us this, we have better relation with you. If you're giving this, we will not pick sides. So this is the exact template that Southeast Asia is taking now. They don't want to pick up sides, but they want to use, okay, you're giving me this, let's be friends. Very transactional now.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of game we'll see. A lot of attention from the great power, but I think the final agency is with the small and the middle power countries.
In the book, you also talk about the establishment of global commons and the importance of global commons. But what role does Asian and other organizational bodies play in communicating this to China and establishing and keeping those diplomatic ties, that there are certain areas and things that you can't wade, waters you can't wade into, and so on and so forth? How important is it to establish these global commons and make sure China understands that there are these areas where you cannot? And what are the consequences for China if they were to?
That's very interesting, because for China there is no term like global commons. There is
Exactly.
no sharing of anything. Whether it's mine or not, or if it's not mine, it would be mine. So China sees other problem with global commons. These are those regions which have not been accessed by humanity. Maritime domain, space. These are the areas which have not been accessed. And the countries with technology has access to it. So either it's US or China. So whichever access it first could name name it. So if you'll see recently, China has found certain places deep in the Pacific Islands, I guess, and they got to name Indian Ocean again. Like if you see like 4 or 5 months back,
Yeah.
they actually named 9 sites in the maritime domain, like they were deep trenches, and they gave Chinese name to it. So this is how you build into the game. You go to a place which was not accessible by anyone, and then you place your something name or just something, and then you can 20 years down the line name it. That's how. And similarly, we are seeing in space. They are reaching out places, and so I don't think China understands the game of global commons, and that is another reason that countries like India, US, we should keep pushing the narrative of global commons. That these are the regions which are outside national jurisdiction, which should be accessible to all, which belongs to all, and everyone should have a right to it. And then we should start funding these kind of institutions. We should start supporting these kind of institutions that promote global commons, like International Seabed Authority is one such organization which actually takes care of management of resources beyond your national waters. So everything beyond a national waters, all the resources available can be only accessed by ISA. But ISA is a very small organization, with a small office somewhere in Kingston. So these are the organizations which require more support. So if India and other countries will start supporting, and they have started doing it, Fiji and all these countries, companies are now supporting it. So we need to start building up of this narrative of global commons. If you want to avoid the Arctic, if you see, again, it should be a global commons. But because China is now accessing it, we are very fearful that whether it will remain a global common anymore. So now we need to start thinking on those domains where we are not thinking beforehand. Now we need to think that all these areas will be open to humankind sometime. But we have to make it sure that it should not be only one country dominated. Because whosoever dominates it will make the rules for it. And then you will have to abide by those rules. And by practice we have realized that Chinese rules are not something the world would like to follow. We can still follow American rules, they are not fair, agreed. But they have at least a democratic value to them. You can still fight your own, you can still debate. In Chinese, either you agree or you're out, you're purged. We're still not ready for that. So we need to think on those lines now.
I'll just round down. I had one last question. You touched upon this earlier, but the stalling of projects along the BRI, does the sudden trigger, this 10-dash round, does this expansion to the South China Sea, is there any relation between why there are these projects stalled? Say in Bangladesh, there are projects stalled, Pakistan, there are projects stalled. And at the same time, these countries, not Bangladesh, but Pakistan, Sri Lanka, they've moved into debt traps now because of China. So what is the relationship between projects being stalled across the BRI and they're more triggering in the South China Sea, let's say?
They're not unrelated completely.
Okay.
They're not related.
They're not.
Stalling a project has to do with the undue kind of economic incentives that were given, and the kind of flash pound kind of scenario which was there, that they wanted lease of 100 years for land and that kind of demands which were there. The projects were stalled because of those debt kind of issues. But it also showed in a way that China holds the upper hand in negotiation. It does not see its donor country as a partner. It will always be below China. So that kind of upper handedness China has shown through those kind of debt trap things. What similar impact you see with China's 10-line, and we can draw parallels to it. It also tries to China is trying to expand itself territorially, maritime, in a maritime way or territorially. It's again showing upper handedness. That I can expand my land borders, maritime borders, and you have to abide by it. In a way, overall, it shows you Chinese side that I am superior to you in every way, economically, geopolitically, strategically, literally, whatever you say. I am stronger to you, and when I am stronger to you, you are not my party. Even if we are trading together, if I am saying something, you have to agree to that. And that same psyche is replicated in each of these things if you start seeing. If you see China from that perspective, that China is being an insecure bully, is what I would call it. That it's very insecure about China, and I would not say China is a very confident country again. It's not confident. If the country is confident, it will not do things that it's doing. If the moment you start analyzing China as an insecure person, how an insecure person behaves, and you have this shame, you see which country was not colonized except a few. Which country was not colonized, but which country has taken that century of humiliation to such extent that they started building national narratives around it that shows that kind of insecurity within a country. And then on the other hand, you're being a bully. You want to get back to that path, but not as partners, but as a bully. So the moment you start seeing China as insecure bully, everything that China does will start falling into place. At least from my perspective, when I start seeing it, it all falls into place.
Will this start to push these countries towards the US, towards India? Does India have a chance to gain influence now in these places? Or is it just...
I think we just keep losing our chances way too much. I think we always have chances, but the election cycle kills us. Democracy is not only our strength, but also our biggest weakness. And China knows it. That for 5 years, one government is there, next 5 years, let's reap the benefit from the opponent side and just build pro-China. China knows to play against democracies very well. That's why we lose every 5 years or 4 years.
I'll wind down now with the questions. But are you planning on writing any more books though in relation to
Yes,
anything in the works?
I have 2 more projects going on.
Okay.
So one is on UNCLOS
Okay.
and how India sees United Nations Convention of the Law of the Seas, because we do not pay a lot of attention to the power that it gives to India. And as recently as 2 days back, we had Judge Neeru Chadha appointed as International Tribunal of the Seas Vice President, which is a major win for India. I would say why is because, first, not because she's female, only because good part, but also because having an engine over international tribunal, which is a lot more power in that circuit. So I think that is so we don't understand the power these international institutions can give us by staying away. We have to stay involved. We have to not be just be members, but also being the top people like VPs and all that. So UNCLOS, I think, is a very underappreciated topic in Indian strategy community, and I would want a book from a perspective on that. And other project is again on something on China and their maritime approach and everything. So that's again in the talks right now on building up shape. So let's see 2 years time or so.
Thank you though for this
Thank
and
you.
joining.